Chapter 8 of An English Girl's First Impressions of Burma. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Carol Fullerton Samsell at clonesoflangston.com. An English Girl's First Impressions of Burma by Beth Ellis. Chapter 8. Entertaining. Quote of unknown origin. Thou didst eat strange flesh, which some did die to look on. Entertaining is nervous work, as all the world knows. The anxiety is considerably increased in a small country station like Remyo, because one cannot be sure that the rats will not devour the food beforehand, or that the cook will not take that opportunity of having fever, a polite synonym for getting drunk much in use among Burman servants. The dinner party is the most general form of entertainment in Remyo, but not a very frequent occurrence, the reasons being the limited number of available guests and the restricted nature of the menu. No sane person would dream of inviting another sane person to dine upon nothing but Burmese chicken, even displayed in various disguises from soup to savoury. Once a week beef can be obtained, so dinner parties are usually given on beef days. Should an invitation arrive for another date, great excitement prevails as to what special delicacy has been procured. Once we were presented with a peacock, and gave a dinner party to celebrate the event, the peacock itself being the chief item of the celebration. Our guests arrived full of anticipation of some unknown treat. We received them big with pride. But alas, the vanity of human hopes! During the early part of the dinner, over the chicken entrees, the conversation turned upon the relative merits of food of various kinds of fowl. One of our guests, a man full of information on every subject, interesting and otherwise, suddenly announced cheerfully, "One bird I may tell you is not fit for human food, and that bird is a peacock." Thereupon ensued an awful pause, in the midst of which the servants entered, carrying the peacock in all its glory. Nothing could be done. The bird was shorn of its tail, so to relieve our guest's mind we alluded to it as goose, but no one could have been for an instant deceived. And the worst of it was, our guest was quite right. It was not fit for human food. Another source of anxiety on giving a dinner party in Remyo is the decoration of the table. A Burmese Lugale has his own ideas about table decorations, and these ideas he will carry out, even if to do so obliges him to leave all his other work undone. In vain we may try to explain that we prefer to arrange the flowers ourselves. He looks pained, waits till we have completed our arrangements and have retired to dress, and then pounces upon the table and places his own elaborate decorations on the top of what we fondly imagined a triumph of artistic arrangement. And his decorations are indeed elaborate. Round every piece of glass, china, or cutlery he weaves a marvellous pattern, sometimes in bits of bracken, sometimes in coloured beads or rice, and occasionally in rose petals. When all is finished, the table looks like a kaleidoscope, and one is afraid to move a spoon or glass lest the design be destroyed. On Christmas Eve a large and important dinner party was given by some old inhabitants of the station. All the Europeans were invited, and it was intended that the evening should be spent in jovial and merry games like a typical Christmas Eve at home. But alas! Never was an entertainment beset with greater difficulties. In the first place, nearly all the guests upon whom we most depended for amusement sent word that they had fever. We suspected that fever at the time, and suspected it still more next day, when we heard of a jovial bachelor gathering the same evening in the house of one of the stricken ones. Then the weather was not cheering. It was a terribly cold night, and the houses in Remyo, being mostly of government design, consequently the same for both hills and plains, are not calculated to keep out the cold. There are large chinks in the unpapered walls, and few of the doors and windows will shut. In this particular house There was no fireplace, only a small stove which gave out about as much warmth as a spirit kettle. We all felt grateful to our host and hostess for their hospitality, and did our best to be entertained and entertaining in our own turn. But it is hard to keep up a cheerful appearance and jovial spirits in evening dress in a mat house with no fire and the temperature almost down to freezing point. We played games such as kitchen furniture and family post, which necessitated plenty of movement, and gave everyone in turn an opportunity of occupying the chair by the stove. That part of the evening which I enjoyed most was when I made the mulled claret. I had no idea how to make it, but I should obtain uninterrupted possession of the stove during the operation, so I volunteered for the task. I put the claret and anything suitable and Christmassy I could think of into a saucepan, and stirred it over the stove until the other guests became suspicious, and I was forced to abandon my warm post. I did not like the result at all, and I noticed the other guests lost interest in it as a drink after the first sip, though they clung to their glasses, using them as impromptu hand-warming pans. But what proved the greatest check upon enjoyment of the evening was the great anxiety of the guests for the welfare of the furniture. Our host and hostess were on the point of leaving the station and, as is the custom, had sold their furniture to other residents, though they retained it in their house until departure. Now when one has just bought and paid for, say, a set of drawing room chairs or china ornaments, one does not enjoy seeing the former subjected to the rough usage of a game of bumps, nor the latter endangered by a game of ball. Consequently, each and all were busily engaged during the evening in protecting their prospective possessions, and had little opportunity of abandoning themselves to enjoyment. One very amusing instance of this was the behaviour of the new owners of the carpet. It was a poor carpet, old, faded, and threadbare, but it was the only carpet in the station, and the recent purchasers regarded it with pride. They looked anxious all the evening, when chairs were dragged about over weak spots, and peg glasses were placed in dangerous proximity to restless feet. But the climax of their concern was reached when snapdragon was proposed. The game was hailed with delight by everyone. There really is a little imaginary warmth in the flame, but the contempt of the carpet owners was unbounded. They said nothing, but looked volumes. They did not join in the game, but crawled about the ground round the revellers, busily engaged in picking up the numerous raisins scattered on the floor, forcibly holding back feet which threatened to crush the greasy fruit, and showing by all means in their power that they considered snapdragon a most foolish amusement. Small wonder, considering all these disadvantageous circumstances, that the Christmas party was not an unqualified success, and that the cold and weary guests, plodding home in the early hours of Christmas morning, mentally vowed that such wild dissipation was not good for them and should never again be repeated. Dances are necessarily unknown in such a small station as Remyo. An energetic bachelor did once make an effort to give one, but as the only available room was the ticket office at the railway station, the only available music the bagpipes of the Gurkhas, and the only available ladies 5 in number, he was reluctantly obliged to abandon the project. A much enduring form of entertainment in Remyo is the musical afternoon, or evening party. The inhabitants assemble in turns at one of the 3 houses which boast a piano, but the repertoire of the combined station is limited, and as everyone expects to sing on these occasions, ignorance of time and tune being considered no drawback, and further intends to sing one or other of the few songs most popular in the station, things are not in any sense as harmonious as they should be. This great eagerness to perform entailed much manoeuvring to obtain first possession of the piano, and it was amusing to watch the expressions of mingled indignation and scorn on the faces of others less fortunate, when they recognized the prelude to what they each claimed as their own particular song. The singer's triumph, however, was not without compensating disadvantages, his efforts being assisted by a distinctly audible chorus and undertone, which would cling to him throughout the song in spite of endeavours to throw off the encumbrance by means of abrupt changes of tempo and variations in the air. and this professed appreciation of the performance evoked from the singer such gratitude as one would expect under the circumstances. No, on the whole we did not entertain much in Remyo. We contented ourselves with quiet domestic lives, enlivened but occasionally by such outbursts of wild revelry as I have described. End of chapter 8.